podcast. Today, I'm your host, Dana. All right, so today's movie we watched is Paris is Burning. It was a recommendation from Stacy. As you know, this is June, and so this is Pride Month, and we're here to celebrate. And so, Paris is Burning is the first movie that we watched.
It's like crossing into the looking glass.
How their families, kids from broken homes or no home at all.
My name is Angie Xtravaganza, and I am the mother of the House of Xtravaganza.
I'm Willi Ninja, the mother of the House of Ninja.
Ninjas hit hard, they hit fast. We come out to assassinate.
I am Pepper LaBeija, the legendary mother of the House of LaBeija, and I've been around for 2 decades. Reigning, that is.
And so we're going to go ahead and get into it. As always, we're going to start with our first 17 minutes. And since I'm hosting, I'm going to start with my first 17 minutes. So this is what I wrote 17 minutes after it started. I wrote, I'm in love. This movie was made in the 1980s, and I'm just realizing that all this stuff is older than I realized. Like, growing up, or like I should say mainly in college, like I was the gay club and RuPaul queen of the 90s in my mind, right? Stacey's laughing because she knows. Heads up to Odyssey in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Like, I know it's not there anymore, but yeah. Anyway, but it just, I thought I was on to something, right? I thought I was finding out new things and all this other stuff. But watching this, there were, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, but there were words and things that were said that I just didn't realize how far back they actually went. And, that they didn't originate in my time period. They were before me, and just seeing all this stuff. The first 17 minutes, I was here for it. Our scale is 1 to 5. And I've been trying my best to stay away from the 3s. At this point, I'm totally giving this movie a 4 because I am all there for this. I'm all into it, just in case. I know I kind of jumped into my 17, but this movie is really about the ball culture and stuff. If you've seen the show Pose, I feel like Pose was, I can even pinpoint the characters in this movie that Pose is based off of. I don't know if Pose admits to that. I can't see how they don't, though, because it is straightforward. Pose is like a recreation of some of this stuff that we saw in Paris is Burning, but I'm sure as we talk about it, we'll come up with more. But basically, I'm at a 4-star rating 17 minutes in. So Stacy, tell us what you thought, since this was your pick for the week.
Well, I saw this movie years and years ago. So when I saw that, and then when Pose was supposed to be coming out, I was like, and saw the previews for Pose, I was like, oh my gosh, they really copied. I'm not sure if they copied, but they really got a lot of inspiration from Paris is Burning. And the first 17 minutes was, it was like the first 5 minutes, like, this is not the movie, I'm watching the outtakes. And then I just switched to the movie because there was more than one thing. I was like, this is not how I remember it starts. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm watching the outtakes. And I went to the actual movie part. And the first 17 minutes, you just see so much is going on in the world at the time was just new to me. And it was just that, how those people were living or had to live, because you saw some of the kids that were on the street in just that short amount of time, of that little amount of time, and how they were creating their own families and understanding about just how they lived, and just that whole, they create their own little world there. And that whole ballroom scene, that first scene with the gold, the ball gown with the gold, she was going into there and all that. It's like, wow. Mm-hmm. And basically telling about how the whole ballroom thing and they're getting the trophies were their Oscars. And just that enough right there, that first 17 minutes, I recommended it. So I was like, yes, 4, most definitely, I want to keep watching. But for me, the first 17 minutes, it was a must see.
So what would you rate it?
I would rate it a 4.
Okay. All right. So let's go, Jeremy.
All right. Thank you, Dana. Paris is Burning. All right. I love documentaries, first of all. So get that out the way. I'm a big fan of the style of documentaries and how they're shot and how they're to the point, and they get you in, get you out. So I was ready to go from the jump once Stacy and everyone else recommended it. First 17 minutes, I put 1980s in NY, New York to the gritty, kind of like Stacey was saying from The View, and you said it too, Dana, the New York grit was there from the jump. And I was like, this would be a cool, obviously VHS film that I wish I would have had back in the day just to watch it. And, even watching it on this TV, you could see the graininess and the textures of the old. So I like that. It added a depth of dimension that I think Pose doesn't. Pose is clear, super high res. You see everything in this film was very like just older, and I like that feel. So I also I learned a lot of new things. There was terminologies in the first 17 minutes that came up in Pose again, but it expanded on it. Like they talked about this thing, but they talked about it a little bit more. So I was really looking forward to learning more about what the dances are and what Vogue is and what it means more. So they went into that much later, but the first 17, they were throwing terms at us that was like super wow. Like I didn't know that was a thing. I didn't know back in the day that's what, that meant. I also put it was slow and pretty methodical. So it was a little bit slower pace, but it was very careful. Like the way they shot it and the way they focused on certain characters made you care about them. So yeah, I was all in. I gave it a 4.5 because again, I love documentaries, and I believe this film is like the pretty much mecca for Latinx, Black, LGBTQIA folks that might not have had a film back in the day to attach themselves to. So I can see why someone that might identify in that way would love this film too. So I was 4.5 for me, and I'll pass it to Brian.
So at 17, I wasn't sure what all. I started writing a whole bunch of stuff about documentaries and film school and everything, but I'm at a 4 too. And it's important to say that this is a documentary. And in the early 90s, I had no exposure to any of that, and I was in college, and when Madonna's Vogue came out on MTV, and it's just funny. I'll go into the story a little bit later about that, but I don't understand why I've never seen this movie before. It's just a gem. So that's really all I've got to say about this. The documentary style is perfect. It is what it is. It's people talking about their world, that world, and it's illuminating, and it's important stories to hear and share. And the whole point of giving an audience to these stories is so that we understand the world better. We get outside of our little bubbles and just understand people better. And so at 17 in, this was a 4 for me. I was so glad that I finally got to see this movie.
All right,
Corey.
I want to just say repeat, rinse and repeat everything that has been said by the rest of the people on this podcast. 1000%. Again, I love documentaries. I'm actually doing one right now myself. And so I saw a lot of things that you don't see in some documentaries. Some documentaries are like just swayed to one side. They only want to tell one point of view of what's happening and this, that, and the other. You get a little bit of everything in this film. And I agree with Brian when he said that I don't know why it's been so long that I hadn't seen this film. Like, I definitely think this is a film that they should teach or show in film school or any other kind of production, film production schools or something like that. They should totally use this as an example of how to actually do a documentary. But again, you do get a good sense of each character, and their backstory and this whole sense of community and environment in New York. Like they start out with just 2 kids on the street, and one of them is like 15 years old, and they're talking to him like, why are you here? Like, it's 10:30 at night, so you be at home, blah, 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 whatever. And it's like those types of things you don't really see or understand I didn't understand it. I didn't know what was going on back then. And I just got a lot of enjoyment out of it. I just really was like into this and wanted to know more in the first 17 minutes. I was totally hooked. I was at a 4-star. I was thinking Pose the whole time. Just like Dana was saying, we were picking out characters and everything. So I was here for it. I'm glad that this was on Criterion. So Criterion, for some people that don't know, this is on Criterion. What they do is they're a company who basically takes some really prestigious or films that are known in the film industry, and they restore them using a lot of their original film stock. And so when I saw this on Criterion, I knew you were going to get some really good image quality and restoration from this film. So I was really excited about seeing it from that aspect of it. It's just, it's an upper echelon of like, these are films that are known for this type of genre or this type of style or whatever. So I'm glad that it's on the Criterion list and something that people can seek out, especially if you are a film buff or if you are a film person. This is definitely one that you should check out on Criterion if you can. But I loved it. Absolutely loved it. Absolutely loved it. I was here for it. 4 stars.
Well, awesome. So normally this is when we would come in and be like, spoiler alert, but this is a documentary and it really didn't have any spoilers.
Nah.
But now we're just going to kind of get into the movie and give you our thoughts past the 17 minutes. And as usual, I'm going to go ahead and go first. So the one thing I will say is that the thing I think I loved most about this movie, and again, you've heard most of us say, we kind of saw Pose first, I think with the exception of Stacy. We've all saw Pose first, so we may relate this from Pose backwards versus from Paris is Burning forward. So just bear with us. But one of the things I wanted to talk about that really kind of stood out to me were the balls. So, and knowing more about what the balls were. So I'm gonna give you a little bit of backstory. So when I was in college, I remember the first drag show that I went to. Y'all, I was like a kid in a candy store. I have never seen such a beautiful women, costumes, everything. I was just like totally in love. And that kind of got my start up into the whole thing. And I met all these people and did all these things. They were my people. I felt like we were part of community. And the thing that I think I really liked, and I think this is where Paris is Burning really touched me, was that's exactly what they were talking about. They're talking about a community made up of people who may not have another community they feel like they can belong to. And I felt that way too. And so I feel like, first of all, growing up, I was picked on, I was the little fat black, well, not little, because I've never been little, but I was the fat black child in school. So I kind of always felt a little outside the box. And then even when we went to college, it was a majority white school. And I mean, matter of fact, in our graduating class, Stacey, was nine black people, So there was always a little bit of outside there with me. And then I found this group of people who did not care what you look like, where you came from, none of that. They just wanted to have fun. And we were just having fun and living our best lives before we even knew what a best life was. And that's what I found. And so I had an amazing time. But what stood out to me, a couple of things about Paris is Burning. One of the things I have to tell you, in all honesty, I used to feel when I saw drag shows and things like that, I felt jealous. Because see, I wanted to be in the show. I was watching it. I was like, oh, I can lip sync for my life and get on that. And I wanted to be in it so bad, but I was never really sure if that would be my place as a woman, if I could really get up and do that. And so one thing they were talking about, the balls, and I thought this was funny when we look at Pose, sometimes I'm like, what is this real male shoe realness? I'm just making something up. And I'm like, what is this? But I loved how in Paris is Burning, they explained what it is. There is a category for everybody. Everybody. It could be, guys 5 feet in underwear and baseball caps, whatever it is, there was something there for everyone. And that just touched my heart because that I loved. And I didn't realize that. I knew, in Pose, they had all these different categories, but sometimes I just thought they were weird. And I was like, well, that's weird. What is that about? But knowing that it was to give everybody an opportunity to participate, I absolutely love that. And so that was one of the things that really stood out to me. in this movie, and I was so there for it. So this time I'm calling you Jeremy. So
All right.
go ahead and fill us in. Tell us some more about what you thought about the movie.
Yeah, I enjoyed similar things as you, Dana, but I also enjoyed like the battle aspect. Like they broke down how they judged, how you ain't supposed to touch nobody. When he was like, "Don't touch him, don't touch him, don't touch," I was weak because I was like, come to think of it, you think of like, battle rapping or breakdancing, and it's like you ain't supposed to touch nobody. So
Right.
they were going in. Like my favorite parts were just the aspect of breaking down an element that you thought you knew, but you didn't know anything about how it's judged. Like Dane was saying, the trophies, the big monumental, larger than life trophies were all up in this. And I remember seeing that in Pose, and I would want to know, like, how is that? How do they judge? How do they break down the categories? And so they went into that. I think might be a controversial like thing I'm saying, but I think characters like Pepper were like cool in this, a little bit cooler than what I thought someone would be in Pose. And the reason I say that is that they just seem, obviously there are the real people that are playing this, but not even a character, but a human aspect to it. But I felt more realism from like, Dak, like I really wish I met a Pepper. I really wish Pepper had their own like sub documentary just so I could learn about Pepper. So like the characters, in other words, what I'm saying is the characters made me want to learn more about them, as opposed to someone like in Pose where there's this side story. Like in the first season, there was the white male that the person was meeting with and hooking up. I was just like, it was a lot going on, whereas this is focused directly on a couple characters that you really got to see their personality. You really got to like laugh with them. You really got to see all the snapping and the jokes and the like kind of mannerisms that we even incorporate today in, regular culture or gay culture, queer culture. So like, I felt that it was nuanced more in this as opposed to Pose, where we just got a bunch of big list of characters. We got a bunch of big list of themes, and this just focused on people and personalities like Pepper. And I wanted to know more about people like that. And that's what I enjoyed, as opposed to just watching something where it just kind of is like all over the place. So let's see what else. I enjoyed the visuals, like I said, but yeah, those were some of the main things that I liked. And I wanted to research those people. Literally after it went off, I was like, let me Google the history of some of these people. And it was just interesting to see that the communities, even now in 2021, look up to these individuals. And that's pretty dope to me, because everyone, like you said, Dana, everyone has their place. But you now see RuPaul's Drag Race. You now see these new shows. You see these new things that incorporated from Paris is Burning. And before that, I didn't know what it meant. So now I do. And I want to watch it again. Like maybe that's just the educator in me. I just want to keep educating myself on what this is and what LGBTQIA and queer culture use these terms. And those are things that are not only innate to them, but it's their culture, and you should care about it. And this is why you should care about it. So it invoked a lot of caring for me, that it was pretty much like something that made me look at it in a more honest lens again than Pose. So that's what, Dana, I would say that stood out for me, is just the honesty, the transparency, and the like. I thought I knew about this, and I didn't know much at all, actually. So
I felt the same way. I agree.
Yeah. I yield to Stacy.
Well, I was going to say that if you wanted more about some of the characters, watch the outtakes, which I started to watch before I realized that was the outtakes, not the movie. But like I said, I've seen this before, and so nothing was really new for me for it. But actually watching it now, and then knowing that I've watched Pose and everything, it does make a difference. And watching it now, compared to like what's happened to some of the characters, because I knew it's not a documentary for spoilers, but I knew what would happen to I believe her name was Venus, Xtravaganza. Venus Xtravaganza. And so I knew that, and some of the stuff she was saying beforehand about one of her bad experiences, and you hear about it then, but then you later on you see that she is killed by someone. So seeing that and knowing what's going to happen, or some of the stuff they did get straight from their lives for Pose, because remember the character Dorian Corey? She was the light-skinned one with the every time she talked, she was doing her face.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
All the stuff she was saying was like just gold. Everything
Yep.
that she was saying. It was like everything. She's like, oh my gosh, it was just like, listen to like a grandmother's like, oh, okay. So when you do this, just all the stuff you're saying as she's just putting on makeup. And when she passed, they found a body in her closet, like in Pose with where
I didn't know that. That's crazy.
that actually happened. And when they did that Pose, I was like, you stole it from her.
Wow. Okay.
And they found that after she passed, they were like going through a closet and all that, and they found that. So I was like, when I saw that, and now from this point, it's like, okay, they took so much from these people's lives. And then, when you say y'all researched it later to see, what's happened to some of those people. But one of the things I found out was the original person who did the documentary, how much it made, but they didn't get really anything from it. Mm-hmm. And when you saw the struggle that they were all, not all of them, but I mean, a lot of them were struggling. You see they're making their own costumes. When he talked about mopping, and this phrase mopping about, because they would get their outfits any way they can. And some of those outfits were fantastic. Mm-hmm. So in the first episode of Pose, what did they do?
Stealing out.
It's still a museum. But when you see that, just all of the stuff that's happened, they just took straight from Pose. But when they took, I think when I read in the article was that the lady who did the documentary, I think overall at that time it made like $4 million for documentary, and the people that were in there, 55,000 split between all of them. And you're like, what you made a name and a wonderful documentary, and that is all that they got from it. And you just took so much from their lives and what they said and what was going on in that community, and I mean, she made money off of it in a way. But I mean, that's one of the things that just really kind of disappointed me after the fact. But the overall movie in itself, when you saw all the characters, and you could tell, it was the 80s. It was New York, which I've never been there during the 80s. I've been in there, when everything's cleaned up, and it's tourists, all that. But I don't know, and all kind of talk, he's like, everything looks so, oh my gosh, it was hot as all get out. It just seemed like everything is hot and humid, and I feel like you could have been in Birmingham at that point. How hot and humid it was. And it was just, it just so old school New York, which again, never been there, but every time you see a show or a movie about that time frame, and just the struggles of the people, but also their happiness. I mean, when they were, just, getting this trophy or going, I love the fact that they said all the categories, everybody has a chance. So there's a category for you. You want to, the what it had, was it Butch Queen category? It had everything. First time drag.
Oh yeah.
Drag. I mean, it just had everything there. Military and everything. The body. And when it's like, feel the skin, feel how soft the skin is. Like, I don't know it all fast. And just, their overall joy and how they create their families. And just seeing how again, a lot of comparisons, like you see the MC of it and like Pray Tell from Pose. It was just, you can see, like, I'm not sure how Billy Porter is real life, but you can see he watched the film when he did Pose. And you see the mothers and those who was I'm not sure, House Extravaganza, and some other people like, oh, that's so and so from Pose, or it's just the comparisons was there. But I just overall just love the whole thing, and I just worried about like the kid, those two kids they kept on coming back to. He said 10:30. I thought they said 2:30.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought he said 10:30. Okay, you're probably right.
I thought it was 2:30. So I was like, wow.
It was still too late for them to be hanging out.
Either way, yeah.
Either way,
I would have got my ass beat. Okay.
But it was like just 2:30. It's like it's because they had no home. The one of them did. He said,
right,
this is my family.
Yeah.
And you just felt for those kids and about they did have a family, but at the same time, not in a way. I mean, it's still you found a community, but you still have lost something.
right.
And you watch the outtakes, which the first 30 minutes. One of it, I think, Pepper, he talks about his mother and about when his mother found out and his father. He talks about that. If you watch that, that is a good little outtake about his experience there. But it's just, I'm glad I suggested. It's been so long since I've seen it, and then to see it again and just still be entranced by the whole thing. And I know some of it is, it is their life. It's going on, but the balls were like, every time they have a balls, the perked up. It's like, okay, what's somebody going to be wearing? And it's just the whole thing. Town and country, winter wardrobe, the fight over that woman's white, fur coat.
The fur coat. It buttons on the other side.
That was funny.
And when was it Dorian Core is like, and they're just so petty at sometimes. It's a coat, just calm down. I enjoyed it. And so, overall experience, I would say 4.5, maybe in a 5. Because I will, while I have that free subscription to Criterion, we'll probably be seeing it again.
You better try to remember what you saw.
It was on Hulu at one point, but all right. No, advertising for somebody else. So, Corey, how did you feel about it?
I agree with everything that everybody is saying. It was just, to me, when I was watching, I just felt like all kinds of celebration of pride, just watching it. Like, it has its dark moments, when they're talking about their family and, being rejected by their family and things that they've gone through experience-wise at home. Like with the main character, I can't remember his name, talking about when his mom first found out, that he was wearing her clothes and everything like that, her burning all that stuff or whatever. It humanizes everything that's there. But for the most part, it's like celebration and just pride of this community and everything that, you guys are saying before. That's what I loved most about it. I felt like they just compacted so much information in an hour and 17 minutes that it didn't feel like we were missing out on anything. If anything, it just felt like we just wanted more of it, right? So it wasn't like, oh, well, they didn't talk about this, or they didn't talk about that, or blah, blah, or they only leaned just to one side, or only just talked about the balls. Like, they talked about so much. Even the fact that what Jeremy was saying, I just like that they were giving you title cards, of like mopping and this, that, and the other, and then they give you the definition of what that was, and then show you an example of how that was portrayed. Like, my favorite scene, the scene that Dana and I just busted out laughing, was when he was talking about mopping and he shows the cheeseburger. And he's like, they put real cheese in this burger in front of them two people sitting at the table. I know they're looking at like, what is happening? Whatever. And it almost looked like someone who, if someone was doing a documentary now and they wanted to be incognito, they'd take their phone and just place it somewhere. And, it would be on, but nobody knew that there was a camera there. That's what that shot looked like. Like, I couldn't imagine that really was a director or a cinematographer sitting there, getting this shot. It just felt like they propped the camera up there and nobody knew that the camera was there, and he did that thing. And Dana and I was also mentioning, too, that there are scenes in there where they show the modeling. So they're showing the modeling and everything, and they're inside of a mall and they're in these different areas. You wouldn't be able to carry a camera inside of there and get these types of shots nowadays, but that shows you the time period and when we were allowed to go and film in certain different kinds of ways. So you see all of that. You see the woman from Coming to America. What's her name, Dana?
Sherry Hadley.
Sherry Hadley. You see her there. And I was just like, oh, okay, blah, blah, blah. And so it was just great. I just really had a smile on my face and I was just kind of like leaning forward, just, getting into that environment and getting into that culture the whole time while I was watching the film. And I'm glad that you can take a film like this, especially a documentary that's 30 years old, and it still be relevant today to what's happening from 1984. Like, that's just mind-blowing to me. And it just shows that the test... one moment.
She waits until he's talking to do this.
I know, right?
She knows what she's doing.
It just shows the truth to what you can actually do and how things can be very now I lost my train of thought, but just how important filmmaking is and just how important it is to get stories out there of people and different cultures so that people can be educated on things that they didn't know before, or they can see things now and see how it was, it didn't just get created yesterday. This has been around for a very long time. You're just now learning about it, so I just thought it was great. I gave it a 5-star. There was nothing about this film that I didn't like. If anything, I just wanted more of it. So it went from a 4 to a 5 to me. And it's something that I'll probably go back and watch again. I'll definitely watch those outtakes, like Stacey said, and then find out more. I want to Google it and find out more about the history and of these people and, stuff like that, of these characters and things like that. So I loved it. Absolutely loved it.
Okay, Brian.
So I'm at a 5 too at the end, and I was just the other term or lesson that they gave that they spent some time on was reading, and that's being read is something where I think we're a little bit more familiar with that term because of RuPaul and all of those shows, right? But that segment was priceless. It was just so entertaining. But I was really sad at the end, because at the end it ended so abruptly, and with that sad story that I was not expecting, because of the way that the whole film was playing out. I wasn't expecting it to hit us that hard, and I don't know why. I was fooled into thinking that this was going to be safe and not tragic and everything. I don't know why, but yeah, I was really sad. I was surprised.
I'm gonna spill, Brian, with that. With the time period, it was almost going to be, to me, a given that if not in the documentary itself, that certainly when you went back and looked these people up, that there would be some tragedy there,
Yeah. So they held that to the end, and then they told you just enough, and then they let her talk some more, and then it just was really a big punch. So yeah. But anyway, I thought that was really 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 good. But then they, in the credits, they lightened it up a little bit more, because they did quite a few more scenes that may have been outtakes that they just didn't fit anywhere else in the film, in the different sections that they had. But yeah, that was just really, I thought, very, very great documentary making. I mean, that's one of the things that I wanted to do early on in my career. Just gather a whole bunch of people, get in talking about something in common, and editing all together and narrowing it all down, all the little sound bites and all that stuff. The technical process of doing that, that was totally what I wanted to end up doing. And for a lot of years I got to do variations of that. So so this was nice. I'm just shocked that I've never seen it before.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So leave it to me. So now I want to talk a couple things that I always have to say things that kind of made me feel a certain way and maybe might have a little bit of controversy with them. I don't know. But I have to show them a different side. So the one thing that was said that kind of caught me off guard or made me feel some kind of way was there was a gentleman in there who said something that his dad was basically telling them they had 3 strikes against them. And I was like, what are your 3 strikes? I mean, I know that you're Black and you're gay. I get that. But his 3rd strike was that he was a man. And as a Black female, I've never thought that being male, because this is supposedly a man's world, how many times have we heard that, would ever be considered a strike. So I did feel some kind of way about that because I was like, but then what it makes me think is, it's all about perspective, right? So being a gay man, especially a Black one, definitely being male and Black and gay all together is a doozy, in the world that we live in, especially in the world that they lived in now. Lived in then. So I think from a perspective and where he's coming from, that could be, fair to how he felt. But I just thought it was funny because I was like, wait a minute, being a man is a, because if that's the case, then we're all, everybody is either male, female, Black, we all have that. So I kind of was like a little taken off guard by that when it was initially said. So Jeremy, I don't think you nor I gave our ratings. Jeremy, what was your rating for Paris is Burning?
My rating is a 5 perfect, 5 stars. I love it and we'll see it again.
Awesome. A 5 here too. I loved it. It was great. It was really thought-provoking for me. It touched my heart. I really, really did enjoy it. And I would love to see more. But I'm telling you, and it's funny because I don't know if Pose, and I should look this up, ever mentions the fact that basically we got all of this from Paris is Burning. I don't know if any of you know that, but I would be very interested to see how they paid it forward or back or thank, because there's no question about this at all. That I don't want to say it was a ripoff because I don't feel that's what it was, but it took the story and, it brought it to a larger crowd now, I feel like, but, it gave us more meat to what was an hour long, right? Thing and kind of exploded some stuff out for us. But I wonder, because I had never heard of Paris is Burning until you mentioned it, Stacey, I would think because they're so closely tied together that I would have heard it. I was like, I almost feel like it should say at the beginning of Pose based on a story by blah, 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 or a documentary.
A lot of the stuff they did, it was like, that's from, they said in Paris is Burning. You even took the dead body in the closet. You took that sword from her life and you put it in there. Now I'm gonna have to go and look it up because I'm
pretty sure it's mentioned.
I'm gonna be very disappointed.
I'm pretty sure it's mentioned. I think it's all about just like the culture and the community. If you're not around that community or you're not in that culture, you may not know. So.
Well, I need to see it in black and white on the screen, so I'm gonna go and look because
I think it's there. It's got to be there.
I'm gonna go look.
Too similar for it not to be there.
I agree.
What awards did this, like Sundance, and what awards do anyone know all the accolades? And
no, but that's a good question. I'll tell you what, it's a 98 and 89% on Rotten Tomatoes. I do know that. Let's see. I don't know. It's a good question. Very good question. It's highly rated.
Well, we can look it up, and you know what? We'll put it down in the description. So we'll put down in the description some of the awards they may have received, as well as if there is some type of credit in Pose that refers to the original work.
That sounds good. We'll do that.
All right. Well, anybody have anything else they want to add? No? All right, guys. Well, thank you for watching and listening to our review and feedback on Paris is Burning. Thanks for watching. Bye.
All right. Go watch a documentary, everybody.